Following the outcomes of the Census 2022 figures this past week, the country's population now stands at 62 million. With this comes a huge challenge for government to create policy and render services to all who live within its borders. Now, joining us to give us a sense of the latest statistics impact on governance is Dr Sam Koma, think tank leader and governance expert. Dr Koma, very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika. I mean, we've just seen former President Thabo Mbeki taking a swipe at the ANC again. I mean, how do we make sense of his remarks, especially looking at the costly government programs which seem to have yielded very little success?
Oh yeah, basically, so what former President Thabo Mbeki expressed, aligns with the arguments that some of us have been making, that there seemed to be a lack of sense of agency in the manner in which state institutions go about carrying out their constitutional obligations and electoral mandate. So what he's simply saying is that there seemed to have been inertia, either within the ranks of the ANC, but also by extension looking at the government of the ANC in the way it has to implement policy resolutions or conference resolutions that pertains to the business of the ANC. But now we looking at the business of government, which is basically informed by obviously what we have in the Constitution in terms of the Bill of Rights and the policy frameworks that the government will from time to time conceptualize and also formulate and also consider implementation. So the Census 2022 results or report gives us credible information that is supposed to inform what we call evidence-based policy making and government planning. So it assists in state institutions. If you take, for example, the National Treasury, they use a formula to look at the allocation of equitable share that goes to national government, provincial governments, and local government. So this Census 2022 report gives us the information, but also it assists institutions like National Treasury to look into how they have to adjust the allocation of funding, conditional grants, either meant for infrastructure, health, education, and other basic services that are part of the business of national government, the provinces, and local government.
Census data released this week paints a very grim picture. I mean, more than 1 million South Africans live with the daily indignity of a bucket toilet after 3 decades of democracy. Where do we pin the blame on? Is it poor leadership? Is it failed policy? What is it?
Yeah, so this is basically what we refer to as deficiencies in the capacity of the state to deliver on these basic issues, which is about ensuring that there is, in this instance, eradication of the bucket system, eradication of pit latrines. So over time, if you refer to the budget, which is delivered by the Minister of Finance, you see that there's always exponential growth in the allocation of this particular aspect. To say provinces, municipalities, here's the allocation, look into the eradication of, say, bucket system. But most of these institutions, especially municipalities, they lack project management capacity to deliver on this bulk infrastructure grant that gets allocated to the municipalities. Poor planning has always been mentioned as part of the setback that is facing some of these institutions. So to deal with these issues or to overcome these challenges, this is the point that we have been alluding to say the state institutions should consider acquisition of talent. We have this talent in the form of engineering skills, in terms of managerial skills that needs to be attracted to be part of state institutions to tackle these myriad challenges related to provisioning of basic services.
Yeah. I mean, one would think that the census is important because it's essentially helpful in compiling a numerical profile of the country to inform decision-making at all levels, be it government and the private sector. Where is the government falling short in keeping up or perhaps even forecasting the growing demands of the nation?
Oh, yes. Thanks, Professor. So we knew from 2011, with the census 2011, it projected that the population will grow. The NDP, when it was launched in 2011, it projected that places like City of Joburg, City of Cape Town, eThekwini, Gauteng, and the Western Cape will attract movement of people from the countryside to these cities. And it provided that this will have implications for planning and provisioning of basic services. So right from 2011, state institutions should have been seized with this particular challenge to say, how then do we plan to cater for this growing demand of needs, expectations, and also the backlogs that accompanies, obviously, the provisioning of basic services. So what is in the Census 2022 report is not surprising to many, because the projection was made already in 2011. The NDP provides for this particular projection of exponential growth of the population size. So to keep up with the growth of the population, the increasing demands, expectations, and also needs of the population, government has to then look into how, one, it prioritizes the provisioning of these basic services, but very important, strengthen its capacity to spend these funds that get allocated to state institutions, because that has been the challenge. Failure to spend capital budgets, failure to maintain existing infrastructure, and also to cater for new infrastructure. This can be done, it can be solved if there is foresight on the part of state institutions and those who are obviously assigned the duty to deal with issues of planning and implementation.
Yeah. There's also the issue of a shrinking number of taxpayers who must support a growing number of social grant recipients. I mean, a clear show that the tax burden is getting heavier on a smaller number of individuals. What's your take on that?
Yes, so this is a macroeconomic issue. We have the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, which was released by the national government in 2011. It speaks about the need to revive the economy post-COVID, and also it outlines the interventions that need to be looked into as part of propelling the growth of the economy, of course, in GDP terms, but also ensuring that this economy is able to create the much-needed employment opportunities as part of addressing these high levels of unemployment, high levels of poverty, high levels of inequality. And if you refer to the International Monetary Fund latest report, it does project a 2% growth for our economy. But it says if Eskom and Transnet are fixed, you are likely to have this exponential growth in terms of our economy.
Yeah, I mean, the ripple effect is something very important to take stock of, because the implications are those that we continue to bear on a day-to-day.
Yes. I mean, the point you raised about social grants, we now know that 19 million South Africans are beneficiaries of the social grant system we have, the various social grants that are provided by the state, your old age grants, your child support grants, and other pertinent grants. But is this sustainable? That's the question. Yeah. So if this triggers the need for state institutions to create an enabling environment that attracts domestic investment and foreign direct investment, and also to look at bottlenecks that needs to be removed as part of ensuring that our economy is able to absorb a sizable number of people who have the skills, but they are not being absorbed by the labor market in terms of employment.
And this report, I mean, the census report, how much of it should be taken to assist in alleviating these problems? Because a lot of money is spent on it, yet the action and implementation of the outcome is something that we're still lagging.
Yeah, so one, there's a need to review the NDP, because the NDP was released in 2011, coinciding with the release of the Census 2011. So there were certain targets set, projections made, assumptions, and also forecasting. So that's the part the state institutions will have to look into. You also have other policy priorities that state institutions will now have to factor in, because the Census 2022 report says in-migration is growing. Provinces of Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and the Western Cape are attracting people from the countryside to these cities. You also have growth in terms of immigration. So that is the reality, inevitable, because you can't stop in-migration, you can't stop immigration. So what needs to happen is this foresight I referred to, and also how to speed up the process of providing these basic services, because resources is not a problem in South Africa.
Yeah.
Money is there. It needs to be spent appropriately, efficiently, and effectively by state institutions.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion, Dr. Sam Koma, who's a governance expert, speaking there about insights into government and policy gaps as well as opportunities.